Hi, also, yeah, I'm Jackson Giordano, and this is my project, Fog Report, working on providing clarity in real time through the fog of war. So, oh, so what is the problem Fog Report solves? So, in today's volatile geopolitical environment, researchers, analysts, and policymakers lack accessible web tools to model potential military conflicts between nations from whether it's perspective of aggressors, victims, or third-party actors, while integrating treaties, alliances, and agreements in order to generate intelligence briefings. So how can I solve this problem? First, I wanted to start off by adding an ability for users to be able to simulate conflicts between all modern day nations, whether they are a third party actor assisting an ally between two different conflicts, or they are getting attacked, or they are an aggressor. And then after adding the ability to simulate these conflicts, I wanted to create a large data set of treaties and alliances used in all these modern day countries and take that golden data set and implement RAG functionality for the treaties and alliances. With both these two features of simulating the conflicts and the RAG app, I wanted to combine them together in order to generate a detailed intel briefing based on the style of like Robert McNamara 1960s declassified briefings that I was able to get a hand on online. So, who is this website for? It's a very niche thing with military intelligence briefings. But Fog Report is tailored towards students in the fields of military analysis, geopolitical research, and policymaking who need AI-powered conflict simulation and strategic intelligence briefings for educational and training purposes. So this could also not just be for like students in school, but people who are just learning. So for me, for example, I love watching these, learning about like global affairs. And so I made this for myself, really, so I can learn more about how these countries act with each other. But now let's go to my demo. This website is currently public on fogreport.io, and all of you guys can access it, and I hope you guys can give it a try. So here's my website. I wanted main issue with this project when I was working through is I wanted to find a way to inform the user of how, or to inform the user of how the website works. So I made this landing page, which is before you even start anything, it tells you you can simulate military conflicts and receive AI-powered strategic intelligence briefings instantly. So then the user reads that and enters a platform where you're prompted with setting up the simulation. Here you have the choice between either selecting example scenarios, like for example, this is France versus UK, but I'm not going to use an example scenario. I'm going to make my own one. And I'm going to simulate myself as US because I'm American. And I'm just going to do a worst case scenario and say, let's say China attacks US and it's China nukes California. Worst case scenario. I also have a conflict type detector where with certain keywords, it can detect what kind of threat for the prompt. So like for this, I use the word nuke. So it says nuclear military threat. If I use ports, it'll be naval conflict and so forth. If I use invade, it'll be territory invasion. But severity level, so for this, I mean, it's a very severe thing. So I'll say it's an extreme imminent threat, and the time frame you have to respond within 24 hours. And for the sake of time, I'm going to go to a different tab where I've already generated it, which this is what the final output looks like for the intelligence briefing. You can see it's formatted like what I said, the McNamara kind of styled briefing. And there's two main sections to these briefings. The first one is the intelligence assessment, where you can see kind of the analysis or legal framework analysis, as this first one says, of how treaties and alliances that your simulated country is a part of can be applied to this conflict. So in the first one, it says the ANZUS treaty, which is the Australia, New Zealand, US treaty, can be evoked for collective defense measures in the Pacific region. So that's clearly pulling that it sees China's attacking US. Australia and New Zealand are very close regional partners there. And it's great to reach out to them and use that treaty for collective defense measures. The second part, which is the part I like the most, is the recommended actions. This part, it'll give you four different actions that you can choose from for the briefing. And so, for example, I'll read this first one. Deploy advanced military assets, including F-35A Lightning II fighters and B-2 Spirit bombers, to conduct precision strikes on Chinese military installations, such as the Qingdao Naval Base. And then it tells you how this action is coordinated with allies to ensure unified military response and deterrence. And you have four actions there. And the AI will actually, or the briefing will actually give you a priority recommendation. And it says the one that I read is actually the recommended form of action. I also added an important disclaimer saying basically this analysis should definitely not be used for any real world military, diplomatic, or policy decisions because you don't want to change anybody's life because of what AI said. And so I added this disclaimer on my README, my license in my repo, and also on this next page, which is my intelligence sources page, which is basically a page just going over my transparency of how the model is working. Since this is very sensitive information to be handling with, you want to see how the model is thinking. And so I have, it shows how many treaties were analyzed to be used in the briefing. It's some Ragus metrics for faithfulness and relevancy and the processing time. So this one took a little bit longer to generate than usual. It's usually 30 to 60 seconds, or really 20 to 50 seconds. But here I also have a black box going into the AI system's reasoning. And so I'm not going to read all this, but it shows how the AI got to its conclusion. And then a legal implications box, which I'm not going to go too much into. And then key treaties reference, which, as you can see, the United States Mexico Canada agreement, which is very important for this kind of conflict, chemical weapons, same way, and UN Charter as a peace framework, and the disclaimers here. Now, just to go back to here, just to show you what it looks like when I generate, this is the page for generating. I didn't want to do it initially because it takes too long. But back to the slideshow. So how does it work behind the hood? I made a super dumbed down diagram to show exactly how it works. So I have a serverless website. So I have the user input, and then once the user inputs the parameters and generates the briefing, the RAG agent then chunks the treaties.txt file with all the treaties and alliances, which is consisting of 45 different sections of treaties, alliances, and basically signed documents applicable to modern day countries. And then after that's chunked, then the AI briefing agent starts working on generating the brief given my big prompt that I made, and then the full brief is generated. So it's basically an input output website given my web extension, which was .io. So the tech stack, just typical Next.js. I use GPT-4 and 4.0 and Vercel for deployment. One issue I ran into with this website at first was I was just using 4.0, and the model was very heavily biased towards diplomacy because as you know, it's probably a good thing that models never recommend military action. And so I had to find a way to work around this. So I started looking into open source models, and this one open source model I found was a Mistral fine-tuned model for military called Mistrilitary, which I really like the name. But I tested it out and it ended up making everything biased towards America. And I want this to be a full world global simulation platform. So I switched back to 4.0 and for the briefing agent was 4.0. And I spent 6, 7 hours just optimizing this prompt to have everything and the agent to have context for all the equipment and bases that it would need and to look up whatever is not there. But the three main points of focus for my prompt optimizing was eliminating the diplomatic bias. Use diplomacy for things like trade embargo or tariffs, which is a common thing right now. Focus for diplomacy for that. But when it's like nukes and invasions, you have to have military recommendations. So eliminate diplomatic bias, balance the responses given the conflict severity, which we set in the parameters, and specify equipment, locations, and alliances to have the briefing be very specific and informative. So as you can see, Fog Report brings military intelligence into the 21st century by using AI to instantly analyze international treaties and generate strategic insights. Thank you guys for watching, and I'm looking forward to hear your feedback and questions.